My Venezuelan driver exposed my Irish husband's incredible betrayal just moments after the ride. The car glided silently through Jessica's small Midwestern town, the weight of her exhausting 12-hour nursing shift clinging to her like a leaden blanket. She leaned back against the seat, her mind racing. Carlos, the gentle driver, had a warmth in his voice that made her feel seen. "What's troubling you, if you don't mind me asking?" he ventured, his thick Venezuelan accent wrapping around each word. And with that, the dam inside her broke. "I'm just overwhelmed," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. She thought of her 2 children, the late-night homework sessions, and Jack, her husband, whose late hours felt like a chasm widening between them. "It's hard being a nurse and a single mom. Jack's always working. I don't even know who he is anymore," she divulged, feeling the mixture of relief and anguish swell inside her. Carlos nodded, a knowing expression on his face. "Family is everything. In my culture, loyalty to family is unbreakable. But sometimes—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Sometimes we must choose honesty over comfort." Jessica felt a knot tighten in her stomach. What did he know? What if he understood more about her life than she had for herself? "It's just—" she started, hesitating. "Jack's different now. This new job takes him away, and I think, well, I can't shake this feeling that something's off." The city lights flickered past, the shadows of silently judgmental people painted by her headlights. Carlos listened, unfazed, as she recalled the once lively family dinners that had grown cold since Jack's hours expanded. "It used to be laughter, stories shared across the table. Now it's just me and the kids, wondering where he is," she admitted. "Trust requires sacrifice, and sometimes it's the sacrifices made in silence that we must confront," Carlos said softly. His reflection in the rearview mirror seemed to pierce the surface of her thoughts. Before Jessica could respond, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Jack, simple in its urgency. "Hey, can we talk?" The words thudded against her heart, igniting both hope and dread. She glanced back at Carlos, who was lost in thought, likely reminiscing about his own family in Venezuela, the warmth of Sunday dinners now far away. "Do you think it's too late to set things right?" she murmured, more to herself than anyone. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sometimes it's harder to confront the truth than to live in the pain, Carlos replied, the weight of his words echoing in her chest. It pierced her thoughts like a knife, revealing what she had long been brushing aside. Jealousy, betrayal, and love twisted together in her mind, each thought more suffocating than the last. As they neared home, the familiar streets felt foreign, shrouded in a thick fog of uncertainty. Every light in her house was dark, and a chill ran down her spine. What truth awaited her behind that front door? What secrets did Jack carry with him? With her heart in her throat, she stepped out of the rideshare, her resolve trembling. Jessica's breath quickened with each step toward her front door, and the weight of the conversation hung heavy in her heart, amplifying her internal conflict. Did she risk everything she had to confront Jack? As she approached the door, the buzzing from her phone pulled her back. "Can we talk?" echoed in her ears, a desperate plea. But what followed that was terrifying, an avalanche of questions threatening to bury her beneath their weight. Would this lead to healing, or shatter the fragile threads holding her family together? The ache of uncertainty gnawed at her, igniting a fierce determination within. Jessica stood before the door, heart racing and mind swirling with doubts and fears. The shadows of her home loomed around her like a suffocating fog. She took a deep breath, a moment of clarity piercing through the chaos. This was not just about Jack. It was about her, her own strength, and the life she wanted for herself and her children. The thought ignited a spark of resolve. She unlocked the door and stepped inside, the cool air wrapping around her like a familiar embrace. But the silence was deafening, an unsettling reminder of the absence that had crept into their lives. "Jack?" she called out, her voice barely breaking the stillness. Nothing. As she walked through the darkened house, each room felt like a ghost of its former self. Memories of laughter and warmth echoed in her mind, an intimate montage that felt distant now. She flipped on the lights in the living room, illuminating the photographs adorning the walls. Family vacations, birthdays celebrated, smiles frozen in time. Then, the weight of her realizations hit her like a tidal wave. How had they drifted so far? It wasn't just Jack's late nights. It was her own silence, her unwillingness to confront the discontent brewing beneath the surface. This was about more than love or betrayal. It was about reclaiming her voice, her life, and her future. Jessica's phone buzzed again, and she glanced at the screen. Jack, who had previously seemed like an impending storm, now felt like a challenge waiting to be faced. The flicker of her fear kept her rooted in place, but the determination she had felt before surged back again. She couldn't let uncertainties define her. With shaking fingers, she typed out a response. "Yes, I'm here. Let's talk." The weight of those words felt monumental. She wasn't just reaching out. She was taking a stance. The minutes ticked by as she braced herself for his arrival, her mind racing through the scenarios. Would he apologize? Would he deny everything, further pushing her into confusion? A battle of emotions raged within her, and she forced herself to breathe deeply, focusing on what she wanted to achieve. As her thoughts spiraled, she reflected on Carlos's words about honesty versus comfort. She made a mental note. This conversation had to be about truth, not about masks and polite facades. If Jack was deceiving her, she deserved to know. More importantly, she needed to step into her own power. When the door creaked open, Jack's figure appeared, his expression unreadable. They stood in the threshold of the moment, the tension thick and palpable. Jessica felt the quiver in her heart, not from fear, but from a rush of courage. The time had come to face the unspoken truths that hung between them. "Can we talk?" Jack began, his voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. "Yes, we can," she replied firmly, refusing to let the lingering trepidation drown out her resolve. Jessica motioned for him to sit, and as they settled into the room that had housed so many memories, she understood this moment was pivotal. It was the beginning of unearthing buried feelings, a confrontation of their shared past, and her opportunity to reclaim not only her voice, but also her identity. But how deep would the truth cut, and would she find answers or further questions? As Jack opened his mouth to speak, Jessica braced herself, ready to encounter the truth, whatever it might hold. Would this revelation strengthen their bond, or fracture it irreparably? The door to their future hung in precarious balance, and she could hardly breathe as she prepared for what lay ahead. Jack shifted nervously in his seat, his hands clasped tightly together as if he sought comfort from his own grip. Jessica felt the weight of the moment pressing on her chest. She had envisioned this conversation thousands of times by now, but never fathomed the raw vulnerability she would display. "Jessica," he started, his voice wavering slightly. I've been meaning to talk to you about everything." "Everything," she echoed, unsure whether to find strength in his words or prepare for a painful confession. He looked down, the shadows playing across his face, a fleeting mixture of guilt and apprehension. "I know things have been rough for us lately. I'm sorry if I made you feel unimportant." "Sorry," she repeated, her voice firm. "Isn't enough anymore, Jack." She could feel her heart racing, each word fueled with the courage she had summoned. What I need is honesty. I can't keep living in this fog of confusion. He nodded, swallowing hard. She noted how his expression shifted, the redirection of his gaze somewhere beyond her, as if the truth he would unveil was hovering just out of sight. Yeah, I get that. I haven't been honest, with you or myself. The air crackled with tension, a feeling that propelled Jessica forward. Why? She pressed, her heart pounding as she sensed his hesitation. His eyes widened, and for a split second, fear flashed across his face. It started as just me coming home late, figuring things out. Then it spiraled. He paused, taking a deep breath. I was spending time with someone else. There it was, the plateful of truth laid bare, raw and bleeding. Jessica felt the sharp flash of hurt slice through her, but alongside that pain grew an unsettling clarity. This moment, though excruciating, was a long time coming. How long? She managed, determination seeping into her tone. He spoke, and each syllable further fueled her resolve, a revelation that pierced the heart of the matter. As Jack recounted the feelings of confusion and midlife crisis that drove him into the embrace of another, Jessica's disbelief morphed into comprehension. His vulnerabilities mirrored her own, a reflection of how they had both become lost on their winding paths. But it wasn't just about Jack's betrayal. It was about her own progression as an individual. She had spent too long standing in the shadows of their shared life, and now her rightful place in the light was ready to be seized. Do you love her? She found herself asking, an urgency to cut deeper than the surface. He hesitated, glancing away, and Jessica captured this hesitation, noting how he wrestled with his feelings. The answer would mark the divergence of their paths moving forward. No, it was never about love, Jack finally admitted. It was about feeling alive, and I lost sight of home. Jessica recognized the chance for a pivotal shift, a decision transcending the boundaries of betrayal. She felt an inner stir of capability, one she had yet to explore fully. If his actions had pulled back the veil, exposing their mutual struggles, then perhaps it was time for her to reclaim not just her voice, but also the narrative of her life. I refuse to allow this to define me, she stated, punctuating her statement with a newfound strength. The room felt expansive, almost electric with possibilities. We both deserve the chance to find ourselves again. Jack stared at her, seemingly taken aback. The shock on his face registered on a deeper level. Perhaps he was witnessing the rebirth of Jessica, one he had previously underestimated. Whatever this is, we need to confront it properly, she asserted, letting the determination meld with the vulnerability she had unlocked. I want the truth, not just answers, but growth. Together or apart, we need to start fresh. The conversation shifted from accusations to a cooperative confrontation of shared demons. They began to outline a roadmap, one scattered with uncertainties but lined with mutual respect and the prospect of real change. Yet as she articulated her desire for a different future, a dark question echoed in the corners of her mind. Could she truly trust him again, or was this simply a step on her path towards independence? The air was thick with unresolved tension, and though clarity dawned, the journey ahead remained fraught with hurdles. Jessica gazed intently into Jack's eyes, realizing that the real confrontation would come not just from him, but from herself as well. What could she discover about her own resilience amidst chaos? And would she dare to challenge the deepest part of her fear? The quiet of the room enveloped them like fog, yet within her a storm intensified. Jessica's mind raced, cluttered with a sense of urgency that demanded clarity. She had just begun to identify the myriad ways in which life had overshadowed her, how Jack's self-discovery had prompted her own awakening. Let's make a list, she suggested suddenly, feeling unexpected conviction surge within her. Let's write down what we want to achieve separately and what we hope to rebuild together. We need these ideas out in the open. Jack blinked, caught off guard by her proactive approach. "You think that will help?" "It's a start," she replied, firming her tone. This was about taking control, not waiting for him to lead. As they settled in, she felt an edge of apprehension toward the eventual confrontation of deeper truths. Would he still carry the baggage of his actions into their future? She grabbed her notebook, fingers trembling slightly as she began penning her thoughts. What was it she truly wanted? At first, mundane aspirations came to mind. Travel destinations, career goals she had shelved for years, and hobbies she once loved. But then the flicker of deeper desires ignited. Her relationship with Jack had taken up every corner of her space. She longed for herself again, for a sense of independence that felt both daunting and liberating. "I want to reclaim my identity," she finally wrote, as the words felt powerful and beyond her. She could breathe without the reliance on another's approval, a thought that simultaneously terrified and favored her. Jack let out a soft exhale, watching her as she scribbled. "You know, I've always admired your strength." "Strength doesn't just come from a shared connection, Jack," Jessica interrupted, her voice steady. "I've realized I need to nurture my own. We've both lost pieces of ourselves, and that's not something we can just overlook. I'm not running back into silence anymore." In her pursuit of growth, she found a new rhythm, a resilience developing with every word transferred from mind to paper. They spent hours intertwined in this shared exercise of delineating their desires, fears, and essential truths. Each revelation illuminated the crevices of their shared existence, exposing the most hidden parts of their beings. "Okay, so what's one thing we both want to improve together?" Jack asked, shifting focus. "Communication," Jessica said, utilizing a concept they both evaded in the past. "No more harboring feelings or thoughts as if they're a secret. Let's vow to share our worries or concerns as they arise instead of letting them fester." "Agreed," he acknowledged, looking more engaged than she had seen him in months. As they continued, there was a palpable shift. The conversation garnered momentum, overflowing with genuine vulnerability. Together, they established guidelines for a potential future. Yet the lingering question churned within her. Could they circumvent the rubble of distrust to build something resilient? They eventually reached a pause, the air laced with a mix of anxiety and hope. With pens poised, they made a pact to regularly reconvene to assess their progress on both personal and partnered growth. "Just remember," Jessica added firmly, a flash of determination in her eyes, "if at any point I feel we are slipping back into old patterns, I won't hesitate to call it out." Jack nodded, a newfound respect gleaming in his expression. "I won't ignore it either." A sense of peace washed over her, a balm for all the tumultuous feelings she harbored. Yet as they closed this chapter of planning, Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest parts were still to come. Would she really be able to trust Jack enough to let the fog lift entirely? Had he definitively cast aside the echoes of betrayal? Determined to forge ahead, she stood up to gather her things. The conversation was merely a first step, a commitment to navigating the crests and valleys that lay ahead. But in the back of her mind, a whisper lingered. What must she confront within herself to ensure her own evolution? Would her willingness to embrace change enhance their relationship, or would it ultimately reveal an insurmountable divide? As she steeled herself for the next phase of their journey, the pieces of her internal landscape lay scattered, ready to be re-evaluated. But the question remained, would she dare to reconstruct herself in the light of this burgeoning independence, regardless of the outcomes? The days that followed their planning session unfolded like a trial, each moment a delicate dance between hope and trepidation. Jessica felt the weight of her newfound resolve press against her, a constant reminder of her desire for identity and autonomy. Each late afternoon, she would dedicate time to refine her own goals, collecting fragments of her scattered aspirations and setting them down with purpose. Yet, an unsettling discord lingered in the air. She could hear the echoes of Jack's past decisions riffling through her thoughts, an incessant whisper of doubt that urged her to second-guess their pact. Did he truly understand the magnitude of what they'd decided, or was this just another fleeting moment of illusion? What began as a promise soon transformed into a series of inconspicuous tests. Jessica was determined to cultivate both her independence and a relationship that fostered mutual growth. But she realized it wouldn't be easy. One morning, she stood in front of her mirror, facing the reflection of the woman she barely recognized. Who was she now, and what made her feel whole? The slightest shift in her routine unraveled threads woven tightly over the years. She debated whether to reach out to the gallery where she once showcased her artwork, a vibrant extension of her personality silenced for too long. It felt like reclaiming a piece of herself that had been submerged under layers of domesticity and self-doubt. She hesitated, a timeline of what-ifs flooding her mind. What if they had forgotten her? What if Jack objected? Plucking up the courage, she typed out an email, an inquiry about upcoming exhibitions and submission deadlines. Sending it felt liberating, a stroke of independence she craved. Jack's transformation loomed in the background, distracting her as she sought clarity. As she navigated the maze of her emotions, she couldn't help but scrutinize his behaviors. Had he changed? His efforts to communicate more openly looked promising, yet moments where old habits resurfaced left her reeling. Whenever he missed could-be vulnerable moments or suppressed candid conversations, anxiety rushed back into her chest like a choked breath. During one dinner, an awkward silence hung in the air while they chewed. The disconnection felt palpable, and it neatly aligned with Jessica's emerging conviction regarding her needs. She couldn't allow herself to retreat. She felt poised on the edge of reclaiming something precious. "Jack." She addressed him carefully, her voice steady. "I need to talk about us being on the same page. I feel like we have to share the burdens we each carry, and we can't just gloss over it. Can we talk about how we handle embarrassments from the past?" His fork paused mid-air, the color drained from his face. "I know it's uncomfortable, but I can't gloss it over," she continued, her heart racing at the confrontation. "You have to realize that I cannot keep shutting down just because it feels easier. We need to face the hard things about our past if we want to build something real." A heaviness settled in the air as Jack absorbed her words. "You're right," he finally confessed, his voice soft, yet it carried the tremor of something deeper. "I've been trying to tread lightly without pushing you, thinking it was better for both of us. But if we're going to be honest, I need to step up." Jessica felt both relieved and anxious, knowing that this discussion was just one of many conversations they would need to face together. Building trust was a laborious task, riddled with potential pitfalls. Each moment she challenged him propelled her further into the unknown territory of vulnerability, an exciting yet unsettling place. After dinner, a note of uneasiness lingered as Jessica scrolled through social media. A photo of a familiar face from her past caught her eye, a vivid reminder of an old friend who had moved away years ago. That friend had always encouraged her artwork and pushed her to chase her dreams. Suddenly, an idea struck her. She hesitated, weighing her options, but instantly felt an adrenaline surge. This could be a pivotal turn in her journey. What if she reached out to her friend for advice or for a chance to reconnect? But a rush of doubt washed over her. Would this rekindle memories that would distract her from Jack? Or would it propel her growth further in a way that could enhance their relationship? Such conflicting thoughts churned within her, igniting a new question. Could her journey of self-reclamation align with the potential for a stronger partnership? Or was she destined to exploit two paths that might conflict? As excitement mingled with trepidation, she set her phone down. The next step seemed daunting. Just as she began to craft a message, another thought flickered in her mind. A bold determination to confront any potential fallout from her emerging independence. It was time to juggle her newfound ambitions and the commitments she had made to Jack, whether they would hold together or not. The inner struggle was palpable, her instincts shouting louder as she resisted complacency. Embracing this phase, she committed to navigating the tightrope between rediscovery and the commitment to her relationship. But she understood this. The edges of her security felt more like a tether to the past with Jack than a bridge to new possibilities. As she faced another crossroads, the question lingered, trembling on the precipice of her mind. How would she bear the weight of her independence now that the path was visibly laid out in front of her? Would she have the strength to write beyond the first chapter? Jessica awoke the next morning with a renewed sense of purpose, yet the familiar tightness in her chest reminded her that clarity was a fickle creature. The email to the gallery weighed in her thoughts, prompting a mix of excitement and anxiety. Today, she vowed to take even more definitive action. As she sat at the kitchen table, the sun's rays pierced through the curtains, casting a soft glow that encouraged her. She made a mental note to dedicate this day to deeper introspection and exploration. She grabbed her notebook, a blank canvas for her mind's flurry of ideas. Scribbling out sketches and plans, she lost herself in the process. Recognizing how distant and fragmented her past had become only fueled her desire to reclaim the vibrant essence of her artistic world. But in tandem with her enthusiasm, a nagging voice reminded her she couldn't function in isolation. Even as she pushed forward, Jack's presence loomed large in her thoughts, reminding her of their recent conversation. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her reverie. It was a message from her old friend, the one whose face had danced through her mind last night. The brief reply exuded warmth, expressing fond memories tied to their artistic aspirations. A surge of nostalgia enveloped her, rekindling a fire she had buried beneath years of complacency. But as quick as the wave rose within her, doubt crashed into its shores. Would this conversation truly bolster her growth, or would it create fractures in the evolving fabric of her relationship with Jack? Instead of retreating into uncertainty, Jessica decided to confront her hesitations head-on. She replied to her friend, suggesting a phone call later that day. As she typed, she felt a thrill pulse through her veins. It was an acknowledgement of a long-dormant part of herself that she was finally willing to face. After sending the message, she redirected her focus to Jack. She needed to reinforce their current journey, ensuring he felt supported as much as she hoped to be supported in return. With deliberate intention, she approached him later in the afternoon as he settled onto the couch, immersed in his latest book. "Can we talk?" she asked, a projected calm cloaking her inner turbulence. Startled, Jack looked up, his gaze soft, yet conflicted. "Sure, is everything okay?" She appreciated his concern, but it also brought a flood of anxiety. "I wanted to chat about aspirations, how we envision our growth together. I know I've been focused on my art and reaching out to people, friends in particular. But I don't want you to feel left behind. I want us both to thrive." Jack's expression flickered, revealing a hint of unease before softening into acceptance. "You're right. I'm still trying to adjust to our new dynamic. I see how dedicated you are and I'm proud of you. But I guess I worry about how this will affect us." His words cut deeper than anticipated. Although she had hoped for mutual reassurance, she was confronted with the vulnerability that festered beneath their blossoming transparency. Each sentence felt like a revelation, exposing their interdependence and the tasks necessary for trust to flourish. "I need you to be open too," Jessica responded, frustration creeping in. "If we want to grow, sharing this journey means confronting our vulnerabilities, right? And I can't always check in if I sense hesitation. What can I do to help you find your way?" He sighed, collecting his thoughts with an evident struggle. Finally, he nodded, the acknowledgement of responsibility shining in his eyes. "You're right again. I've been hesitant, afraid of becoming the reason you might falter on your own journey. But perhaps it's time we explore our mutual ambitions. Maybe this new chapter could be about us working together to help each of us grow." They sat in a comfortable silence that settled over them, a shared understanding translating into something profound. As they began to plan potential areas for collaboration in their life as partners, Jessica felt the foundations of their shared goals solidifying beneath her. But a part of her was still tethered to the phone call with her friend, bracing for something unexpected. While the moment held space for reconciliation and connection, it was that unresolved tension that lingered at the edge of her thoughts, reminding her there was still more on the horizon. With each step, she realized her independence wasn't just about personal achievements. It was about how to weave those threads into the tapestry of their life together. Feeling the weight of impending decisions, she wondered if true balance could be achieved when disparate paths converged. What would happen when her past converged with her present? And would Jack be ready to embrace that intersection? As possibilities loomed, she was overtaken by uncertainty, yet something stirred within her, eager to reclaim its territory. In the midst of this introspection, a text notification interrupted her thoughts, shattering the momentary lull. The fleeting edge of anxiety rippled back to life, and she took a deep breath. This wasn't the end of her confrontation. What awaited her behind that screen could blur the lines of what she thought she knew. As she glanced down, Jessica knew one thing for certain. The journey toward her self-realization was just beginning, and what she would discover would forge the next chapter of her life. Would she have the strength to confront the shadows of her past, or would it slip away into the recesses of her choices? Jessica's heart raced as she read the message on her phone. Her friend Emily had suggested an evening call to discuss their creative dreams, and the warmth of the invitation brought an unsettling thrill. It wasn't just a chance to reconnect. It was an opportunity to pull back the curtain on her own ambitions, perhaps revealing things she had kept hidden even from herself. As the hours trickled by, Jessica busied herself with final touches on a painting, but the strokes felt mechanical, as if they were waiting for her true inspiration to materialize. The canvas stood before her, a mirror to the unrest simmering within. Jack had taken his usual spot at the kitchen island, poring over notes for his own projects, but the gap between them felt more pronounced than ever. She glanced at him, the focus on his work a stark contrast to the tempest inside her. "Do you think we have time for dinner before the call?" she asked, trying to maintain a light tone, though her stomach churned with anticipation. Jack looked up, the flicker of his brow betraying a concern. "Of course, but if you need to prepare for the call." He trailed off. It was the sound of his support, but it broke something within her, reminding her of the delicate balance they had been trying to achieve. "No, I can manage. I want to share what I learn," she said, forcing a smile while the uncertainty clawed at her gut. Dinner passed in a muted fashion, the conversation stilted, her thoughts darting between the upcoming reunion and the frosty echo of her latest piece, now a silent witness to her struggle. With the clock winding down, she excused herself to the solace of her studio, the walls lined with shared memories of laughter, failure, and paint splatter, each marked by a season of her life. She inhaled deeply, attempting to summon the courage to bare her unmasked self to Emily. The call was not just a professional outreach. It was a rediscovery of who she was beyond the constraints of the present. Would unveiling the colors of her past help mold her current life, or would it fray the newly woven fabric of her relationship with Jack? Dread settled in as the phone chimed. Tentatively she answered, seeing Emily's familiar smile blossom over the screen, yet the comfort was tinged with uncertainty. "Hey, it's been forever!" Emily's voice vibrated with enthusiasm that Jessica longed to embrace. "Yeah, it really has. I've missed our talks." The sincerity of her words spilled forth, even as she wrestled with the nagging doubt of what this reconnection might incite. Was she ready to unravel the heart of the artist she once was, or would she find herself retreating into the safety of nostalgia? "There's so much I want to hear about your work, Jess. I've been following your posts." Emily's energy was infectious, yet the excitement put pressure on Jessica's bravado. Jessica's pulse quickened. "I appreciate that. I've tried to keep busy." It felt inadequate, just a flimsy shield against the growing revelations knocking at the door of her awareness. As they delved deeper into conversation, Jessica began sharing snippets of her recent work, the excitement peppered with vulnerability. What surprised her was how easily Emily drew out the hidden corners of her creative process, the doubts, the ambitions, and the fears she rarely showcased even to herself. Emily listened intently, rousing a desire within Jessica to express everything held back. "It's amazing to hear you articulate what you want, Jess," Emily said beautifully. "You deserve to be as bold as you once were. Make it happen." Jessica pondered those words, finding a sliver of resolve leaping to life within her time-worn spirit. Her friend's encouragement pushed against the shadows that threatened to isolate her. "When I think back to our dreams, I realize I've lost touch with my own vision." "What's stopping you?" Emily questioned, the simplicity of it thrusting reality upon Jessica. She paused, the silence filling with self-reflection as the roots of her discomfort swirled into view. Inadequacy, fear of failure, and the balance she felt precariously close to shattering. "I guess I'm worried about pulling too much from my past. What if it affects my present?" Jessica let out a hesitant sigh, her defenses crumbling slightly. "Every artist needs to confront their past, Jess. It's part of the process. Embrace it," Emily urged, each word a ripple against Jessica's self-imposed barriers, stirring something that felt both dangerously liberating and terrifying. Jessica nodded, though she sensed the heaviness still anchoring her down. Perhaps this call would give her clarity, or perhaps it would pull threatened fissures deeper into the foundation she was trying to build with Jack. With every revelation they shared, she felt a palpable shift, igniting a desire to engage with all of her duality. Could these threads of her past integrate to frame a more cohesive present? As the conversation moved forward, Jessica sensed her unfolding journey beginning to fracture the surface of her ordinary life. She could feel the walls swelling from the inside, the heightening emotions swirling, beckoning. But even in the anticipation of her next steps, the question loomed. Would Jack understand her evolution, or would this drive a wedge between them? Before the call faded to a close, Emily said something that would reverberate within Jessica far longer than she anticipated. "The time had come to face what you've been running from, Jess." Taken aback, yet energized, Jessica considered what those words might mean for her craft, her friendships, and her future with Jack. They could be the lifeline she needed, or a slip into chaos. As she hung up, a new determination ignited her spirit, mixed with a twinge of anxiety. What awaited her was a confrontation, an unveiling of truths that could either solidify her path or splinter it irrevocably. The tension cut deep as she prepared herself to share. Would the blending of her past and present reveal her truest self, or would it pull her into tumult? As Jessica steeled herself, she received another notification, this time sending a shiver down her spine. It was notification from Jack, and she knew it carried the weight of what they needed to discuss next. How would he react to her burgeoning revelations? Jessica swallowed hard, her heart pounding as she opened the message from Jack. His tone was tentative, almost too careful, as if he were navigating a minefield. "Can we talk? I need to understand where you're at." She felt a jolt of fear mixed with a surge of relief. This conversation was inevitable, yet the prospect of it sent her tumbling into a whirlwind of anxiety. She steadied herself, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Should she reveal everything that had swelled inside her during the call with Emily? The echoes of self-doubt clashed with a desperation to express the newfound resolve she felt. Was it too soon? Could honesty bridge the distance she sensed growing between them? She hesitated only a moment before typing back, "Yes, I'm ready." The minutes crawled by like hours. While she waited, the paintbrushes lined up on her desk caught her eye, each of them a vessel for creativity, just waiting to be unleashed. She slipped away to her canvas, fingertips brushing the coarse surface. Inspiration flickered like a candle in the wind, urging her to pour her emotions not just into her dialogue with Jack, but into her art. It was thrilling and frightening all at once. But her thoughts were interrupted by the sudden sound of Jack entering the studio. He stood there for a moment, a shadow crossing his face as he saw her paint-splattered clothes, the chaos of colors surrounding her. "Hey," he said, his voice low. "Thanks for agreeing to talk." "Of course. It's important," Jessica replied, nerves wrapping tightly around her stomach. Would he understand? Would he see the layers she wanted to unearth, the vibrant threads of her past that she wanted to weave into their future together? "Look, I've noticed you've been a bit distant," he began, eyes searching hers for answers. "I didn't want to upset you by asking, but I'm feeling it." He took a hesitant step closer, concern etched across his features. Jessica felt the warmth of his words pressing against her walls, and for the first time, she gave herself permission to be vulnerable. "I think I might have lost sight of who I am in all of this," she admitted, her voice soft but steady. "Talking to Emily today reminded me of my dreams and how much I've suppressed them. I'm scared of what that means. For me. For us." Jack's brows knitted together, and she saw a mixture of relief and confusion ripple through him. "I want to support you. I really do. But I don't entirely understand what you feel." This was the moment, a precipice where she could either leap or retreat. The fear of falling back would only deepen their division. It was time to show him her true self. Taking a deep breath, Jessica ventured further. "I've felt stifled, like I'm stuck on repeat. The truth is, I've been scared to express my ambitions, not just in art, but in life. The more I push it down, the more it grows into this monster inside." She gestured helplessly toward the unfinished painting, which seemed to shimmer with her unspoken fears. Jack's expression shifted, the worry giving way to an understanding that resonated with her. "You think I'm not ready for you to express yourself?" "I think I've been afraid to allow you to see the real me," she whispered, her voice barely masking her tumult. "What if the person who emerges isn't someone you want to be with?" Silence danced between them, heavy with the weight of potential change. Jack stepped closer, his voice firm yet tender. "Jess, I want all of you, the good and the messy. How can we move forward if we don't peel back those layers?" His acceptance struck a chord deep within her, releasing a rush of clarity that surged through her veins. She found herself stepping forward, feeling lighter yet more grounded in her emotions than she had in a long time. What if I fail? What if the person I uncover creates a gap between us? "We can bridge that gap together," he assured her, an earnestness in his tone that stirred something within Jessica, a longing for collaboration rather than separation. It felt daunting, but she could hear the resonance of Emily's words in her mind. Embrace it. It was time to make a choice, to not only repaint her narrative, but to allow their paths to intertwine in ways she had previously feared. But the question loomed, would Jack's willingness be enough to sustain the chaos that might arise from her rediscovery? As the tension between hope and uncertainty pulsed, Jack took a comforting step closer, inviting connection. Yet in her heart, she sensed another storm brewing, one she couldn't yet identify. Then suddenly, a message notification sounded from her phone again, cutting through the moment. Jessica glanced at it, a chill running down her spine. It was a text from Emily. She opened it, the words immediately dialing up the apprehension that bubbled beneath her resolve. "Jess, I just got some news that you need to hear. Are you ready for a big change?" Her stomach knotted as something deep inside hinted at the potential for upheaval yet to come. What could this possibly mean for her journey? And would it elevate her newfound courage, or unravel everything before she could find her footing? Jessica's fingers dropped the phone to the table as if it had burned her skin. The message loomed large in her mind, demanding her attention, yet a desperate need to connect with Jack grounded her in the moment. Jack continued to study her, confusion still etched on his face. "What is it?" he asked, concern threading through his voice. Each word felt like a conduit for their shared anxiety, igniting the tension in the air. Taking a breath, Jessica gathered her thoughts. "It's Emily. She says she has news, something about a big change. The words hovered between them, heavy and uncertain, like an uninvited guest. What does that mean? Jack pressed, standing closer, his expression shifting from confusion to apprehension. I don't know, she admitted, shaking her head. She felt unmoored, the potential for greatness and disruption tangled like vines around her heart. But if it's what I fear it could change everything. Jack took a moment, digesting her unease. Jess, whatever it is, we face it together. Right? For the first time, Jessica allowed her vulnerability to surface fully. But what if facing it changes us irreparably? She countered, swallowing the lump forming in her throat. I'm still trying to remember who I am. What if this news pushes me further away from the person I want to be? Jack held her gaze, as though inviting her to lean into his strength. Are you ready to make that leap, Jess? The only way to grow is to embrace the unknown. His words echoed Emily's encouragement to embrace rather than fear. She nodded slowly, acknowledging the truth of it, even as doubt whispered loudly in her mind. You're right. But I need to understand not just what this could mean for us, but for me. Then it hit her, the messy and chaotic nature of change. The closer she got to the surface of her ambitions, the more uncertain her footing seemed, and the very thought of revealing herself to Jack made her pulse quicken. Let me face Emily first, she decided. I need to see what she's offering before I decide how to incorporate it into my world, or our world. Jack's eyes softened, prompting relief in her turbulent heart. I can respect that. Just remember that whatever happens, I'm here. I want you to be you. Jessica appreciated his steadfastness, but beneath it bubbled a surge of anxiety. I don't want to disappoint, especially not now. What if I fail to become who I'm meant to be? A moment of silence enveloped them, punctuated only by the persistent ping of her unanswered phone. Ignoring it for now, she dared to embark on her internal journey. Jack reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. This is part of the process. The messiness, the fear, the uncertainty. Let it all be a part of who you are. Jessica shifted her focus, that familiar yearning to paint, to create something beautiful, crept back into her heart. You're right. Maybe it's time to find out what this chaos is trying to teach me. With resolve striking deep within, she shook herself free of doubt. The obedient paints and brushes waited just beyond her hesitation, whispering promises of potential release. But the message from Emily loomed like a dark cloud. Let's go to my phone then, she suggested, pulling back from their moment of connection, unexpected determination flooding through her. The thought of seeing what Emily has to say propelled her forward, whatever that might entail. Jack nodded, stepping back to give her space while Unity lingered in the charged silence. But before she could reach her phone, it pinged again, intensifying the moment's urgency. Open it, he encouraged, blue eyes fixed on her as she regained her composure. Each thrum of her heart echoed with new possibilities, and yet the trepidation creeping back in warned her it might not all be good news. Swallowing her nerves, she picked up the phone, preparing to read the awaited message, but as she unlocked it, her breath caught in her throat. Jessica, she read, her eyes widening. I hope you're sitting down. The news I have won't just change things for you. It's about your past unraveling in ways you never expected. With the weight of uncharted territory pressing down, the realization hit hard. Could facing this challenge lead her to the very connection she craved, with herself, with Jack, and ultimately with her art? What other secrets awaited her on this journey? As she braced herself to discover what Emily meant, uncertainty loomed, and her pulse quickened with the weight of the unknown. What truths were she about to confront, and would she be able to face them head-on? Jessica took a deep breath, allowing the tension that had coiled in her stomach to unfurl slowly as she processed Emily's message. The words danced tantalizingly in her imagination, sparking both fear and anticipation. Your past unraveling in ways you never expected. She could hardly fathom the implications. "What's it say?" Jack asked, his curiosity palpable and his gaze unwavering. His presence was both a comfort and a reminder of the precarious balance they were trying to maintain. She hesitated, then looked up at him, and the determination that emboldened her earlier surged back. "It says, well, it sounds like she has news that might relate to my history, something I need to confront." Jack's brow furrowed slightly, concern etched into his features as he approached her more fully. "Do you want to call her now? We can jump into this together." Jessica considered that. He could be there for her as she unwrapped this potential new chapter. Yet a flicker of hesitation shot through her. What if this revelation forced her to reckon with parts of herself she had long buried? "Maybe it's something I need to do alone. First," she stated, choosing to safeguard this moment for herself. "But I appreciate you being here." He inhaled deeply, clearly grappling with the mixed emotions brimming between them. "Whatever you find out, I'm with you. Just know that I'm all in." She felt a rush of gratitude for his support, but it was also laced with the apprehension that each revelation could tilt their dynamic. With that, Jessica steeled herself, choosing to embrace the unknown. After a brief moment of internal deliberation, she replied to Emily's message, asking if they could talk for a few minutes. The waiting felt excruciatingly long, but when her phone finally rang, she gathered her resolve and accepted the call. "Jessica, I'm so glad you reached out," Emily exclaimed, the excitement in her voice a stark contrast to the storm swirling within Jessica. "You need to hear this." "What's going on?" Jessica asked, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. "Remember that art fair we attended together years ago? The one you were so excited about?" "Yes, of course," Jessica replied, unfamiliar dread creeping in. "But what does that have to do with now?" "Your former art mentor reached out to me. They're looking for artists to feature in a project about personal journeys. Those who have learned through hardships," Emily explained, her tone laced with urgency. "I immediately thought of you. You have the perfect story." Jessica's heart raced, a mixture of excitement and apprehension flooding her. "You think they'd want me? After all this time?" "Absolutely. They want authentic voices in their narrative. You deserve to be a part of this." For a fleeting moment, time suspended around her as she envisioned the possibilities. The affirmation that reignited her creative spark flickered within like a stoked fire. But then the weight of doubt settled back in. What if this would require confronting painful pieces of her past? "What do you think? Wouldn't it be an amazing opportunity?" Emily pressed, sensing her hesitation. Jessica swallowed hard. "It's huge, and it's daunting. I'm afraid of what this might reveal, not just to me, but to Jack. If I step into this, it changes everything." "Jess, it's not about changing who you are, but reclaiming who you've always been," Emily exclaimed, her enthusiasm unyielding. "This could be your moment. You need this for yourself, to realize your potential. Remember how passionate you used to be?" As her friend's words resonated deep within her, gritty determination took root. She had spent far too long sidelining her passions, retreating from the vibrant colors of her artistry. This was an opportunity to not only reclaim her voice, but also test her newfound resolve. "I want this, Emily," Jessica declared, feeling the spark of creativity ignite again. "But it feels terrifying. What if I'm not enough?" "Trust me, you're more than enough. Say yes." As the conversation wound down and Jessica hung up the phone, a nectar of resolve surged within her. She left the studio, the vibrant hues of the paint no longer an abstract reflection of her desires, but a beckoning call to her spirit. She wanted her family, her partner, and her art all to flourish together. Returning to Jack, she found him still perched on the couch, eyes glued to a book, but he raised an eyebrow as she approached, noticing the shift in her energy. "Everything okay?" I just spoke with Emily. There's a potential project for artists, and I want to be involved." Jack sat up straighter, his curiosity piqued. "That sounds promising. What's the catch?" She could see his protective instinct ramping up, but this was not a moment to waver. It'll require me to dig deep, to confront parts of me I've locked away, but it feels essential for my growth. Watching him digest her words was agonizing, yet she needed to embrace this moment wholeheartedly. Instead of the anticipated fear, a nurturing light danced in his gaze. If this is something that brings you back to your passion, I think it's fantastic. Really? You're okay with me doing this? Absolutely. I want you to pursue this, as long as you also let me in on that journey. And there it was, the bridge of understanding that they had begun to construct between them. Jack's acceptance filled her with a rush of warmth. She hadn't anticipated this kind of openness at all. What I find will need your support. I want your input, Jack, even if it might make things feel uncomfortable sometimes. He grinned, a flicker of excitement lighting his eyes. I'm here for that. Just promise me you'll share what this process brings up for you, okay? I promise, Jessica asserted, feeling empowered. And just like that, they stood at the precipice of challenge, ready to confront their respective pasts together. She felt a swell of confidence, realizing that this creative venture could intertwine their stories further. The following weeks unfolded with both exhilaration and a fair amount of anxiety. As she wrote, painted, and explored the contours of her experiences, each stroke and entry became an emancipation from her past. She discovered that through vulnerability, she could not only reclaim her art but also shape her identity anew. As the project accelerated, Jack became an integral part of it. He offered support when her doubts crept back in, nudging her to continue exploring the vastness of her journey and proudly cheering her on at every milestone. Jessica found herself transformed, not simply as an artist, but as a wife and mother, embracing every part of herself with renewed depth. Old wounds became lessons, shaping her rather than consuming her. The realization that both she and Jack would evolve in tandem became a luminous beacon, guiding her through the uncertainties that lay ahead. By the time of the project reveal, she stood before an audience, a collection of her art that resonated with authenticity, vulnerability, and strength, each piece a testament to not just her past, but her newfound future. With Jack by her side during the exhibit, she didn't just showcase her journey. She felt the audience embrace her tale as theirs, the stories unfolding like layers of tender leaves. After the exhibit, Jack enveloped her in a warm embrace, pride cascading over both of them as they basked in this moment. "You did it," he exclaimed, elation dancing in his tone. "I couldn't have without your support," she admitted, tears of joy threatening to spill over. "And I couldn't have learned about my own path without you." As they held on to one another amidst the thrumming heart of the gallery, Jessica's thoughts circled back to the vibrant colors and narratives abruptly revived. Every decision had paved the way for not just her evolution, but a more profound partnership with Jack, creating an embrace that had room for the messy yet beautiful chaos of their lives together. And with that acceptance, she stepped fully into her power, gathered the fragments of herself scattered throughout her past, and wove them into an exquisite tapestry of existence. This was no longer about the fears that had once held her captive. The moment was filled with resolve, strength, and the limitless expression of who she had become. The journey didn't merely point toward independence. It spiraled into their shared future, a journey of overcoming that kept unfolding together. Now, as Jessica stood on the brink of not only her own transformation, but a reconnection with each thread of her life, she recognized it was time to share her story, not just through art, but with the world. This is the moment to seize your journey, to embrace what's waiting for you. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Don't wait even one more second to share.